Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We are here with Darryl Edwards. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, honored to have you here. I was just saying before we started that I remember you at Paleo Effects for years and years with this talking about movement and playful movement and the importance of this body as like a dynamic animal-like machine.
Yeah, it sure is. And I was involved with Paleo Effects back in 2012. That was the first conference I attended. There was probably 100 people in the room. And then it grew to this huge conference taking over the Palmer Event Center. And although I'm no longer involved in Paleo Effects or whatever's happening there, I certainly still espouse this benefit of primal natural movement, and the benefits of physical activity and exercise, and why most of us should be moving more, and why we should be moving naturally. And that's what I do. Movement is medicine.
Movement is medicine. I've watched your TED Talk as well, and I thought it was really charming. You know, you had great science, you had great an amount of evidentiary proof how important it is that we move, and we move with joy and playfulness. And then you had brought all these kids up to do on-stage demos.
Yeah.
Tell me about your TED Talk. What was that experience like?
Yes, my TED Talk, Why Working Out Isn't Working Out. And it's really discussing the love-hate relationship we have with exercise and working out. We all know we should be doing it. We all know we should be utilizing our gym membership if we have one, but most of us don't. We procrastinate. We feel that exercise is a chore. It's something that we plod through. We don't enjoy the process. We enjoy the end result. We enjoy the goals, the outcomes. But most of us just do not like working out. And I'm certainly one of those individuals. I don't love to work out. And my TED Talk was talking about one possible solution to this epidemic of sedentary behavior is playing, is being a more playful version of ourselves when it comes to physical activity. So active play psychology is something that I practice as one of my pillars, my 3 pillars of the Primal Play Method. One pillar is play psychology. And by having this mindset of play, you're more likely to be engaged in the process. You're more likely to be receiving these benefits of the feel-good hormones, where you are, activating serotonin and dopamine and endorphins, and having oxytocin release from interacting with your peers in a play-based session. So you can have improvements in your mental health, in your physical health, and also in your emotional health as well.
Yeah. Darryl, you mentioned the epidemic. Tell me the problem that we're trying to solve, and what is the world facing right now with its lack of movement from your understanding of the data that's presenting?
Yeah, well, it's one of the leading contributors to chronic disease, physical inactivity, being physically inactive, being sedentary. And the evidence tells us that even if you exercise, that being sedentary, spending a significant amount of your day sitting, being idle, inactive, is very difficult to overcome by exercise alone. So if you are sitting for 6 to 8 hours per day, which most people would tick that box for sure, you need to do 60 to 80 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity, i.e. going for a run, just to undo the harmful effects of 6 to 8 hours of sedentary behavior. So for most people who are exercising, let's say they are doing a 60-minute jog daily, all they're doing is just pretty much staying in maintenance mode. They're not really receiving the benefits of physical activity. They're just, combating the harmful effects of being sedentary. and many people aren't achieving that 60 minutes to 80 minutes per day.
Yeah.
Right? So physical inactivity basically increases your risk of, metabolic issues. So that means increased risk of insulin resistance, of type 2 diabetes, of elevated blood sugars. It increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, so heart attack, stroke, elevated cholesterol, triglycerides, lipids, etc. Increases your risk of cognitive issues, so cognitive decline, increased risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, increased risk of stress, chronic stress, chronic stress, dealing with depression, anxiety. So there's a mental health impact by being sedentary. And also there's this emotional health impact as well. So if you're sedentary, you tend to be sedentary in isolation. There's less interaction with others. So there's an emotional health impact as well. So I think it's important for us to recognize that sedentary behavior alone in isolation has an impact on one's health. And being physically active actually breaks up that sedentary time. And then we have these other interventions like exercise or training, where you're actually trying to increase the intensity of physical activity to enhance the health impact even more. So there's exercising for fitness, there's exercising for performance, for achievement, for sporting pursuits, but there is also the option to use exercise as medicine, or in my case, using movement in a broader sense as medicine. And the research nowadays tells us that at the sort of lowest levels of detail, how exercise impacts our cells. So exercise physiology is the second pillar of the Primal Play Method. So there are 3 pillars. Play psychology is one, exercise physiology or exercise science is the second, and the third pillar is evolutionary biology or evolutionary fitness. So those are the 3 pillars of the Primal Play Method.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to think about. There's a new documentary. Do you know Kevin James? Is a comedian in
Yes.
the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah, King of Queens.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
longtime stand-up comic. He just made this documentary in which he was going to do kind of like a full body makeover. He hired all these trainers, dietitians, and he was gonna he's gonna have a human transformation. Totally failed. Didn't lose any weight. Went through the whole filming process, and it just never happened. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to put the documentary out anyway, because I need people to see that with all the resources in the world and all the great minds behind me, I still failed. And he's like, that's interesting to me. Why didn't I show up for myself?
Yes.
So how do we work with the psychology of, we know it's good, we know we need to do it, we know it's making us sick. What's the hack to break through that barrier?
Well, we have a significant disadvantage when it comes to using our willpower to get things done when it comes to our lifestyle, because we're ignoring our biology, we're ignoring our DNA. So our biology tells us to conserve energy. It's our brains tell us to seek out convenience. Hence why we invented the wheel, and why we worked on the use of fire and clothing and structure, building structures, and the advent of agriculture. Why hunt when we can plant seeds and capture animals and have them grazing on the land that we live on, right? So we're driven by convenience, and in the 21st century, we're surrounded by convenience. It's overly engineered in our environment. So we have labor-saving devices, we have technology which does a lot for us, and in that environment, our biology goes, "This is incredible. Do you mean I don't have to do anything at all apart from click a button, and I can have this bounty of whatever I need. I can be entertained, I can date, I can receive food just by interacting with this screen. Click a button, it's there, right? So that advantage of us utilizing convenience means we don't have to do the work that was previously necessary in order to achieve those objectives. So for us to have to exercise, we have to say to ourselves, exercise is something good for us, but it's a substitute for the lack of physical activity I get in my day-to-day life. So in the past, our ancestors didn't have a choice. That's the point. Their choice was, if I don't get up and go out, I won't get any food, right? If I don't go out and source and seek fertile lands for us to be able to obtain food, if I don't build shelter, if I don't protect my family and my habitat, if I don't do that physical work, we're not going to survive. It's as simple as that. Then you go through the agricultural revolution, right? If I'm not a farmer and farm food and grow food myself, or have the means to be able to pay for food that is farmed and labor is involved, if I can't do those things, I'm not going to survive. And fast forward to now, where literally the currency of obtaining the things that we need to survive is digital, right? So our DNA is very happy with that, in the sense of, thank you for the convenience. The downside, it means we're physically doing less to achieve the same objectives. And so if we look at a chart of physical activity from our ancestors, Paleolithic ancestors, Industrial Revolution, beginning of the 20th century, in the 1940s, 50s, if we compare physical activity levels from then to the present day, even in the 21st century, if you go to the beginning of the millennium to 24 years in, we're significantly more sedentary than any period ever in human history. And so we are paying a cost of that lack of movement. So it isn't, unfortunately, it isn't as simple as just saying, hey, move more. We hear that message all of the time. Hey, move more, movement. Exercise is good for you. Exercise more. Join a gym, move, exercise, find something you enjoy. We need a few structural changes in our lives to make this happen. So one is, we ideally change their environment, the sort of like the landscape that we're in, which makes us more active, i.e., okay, I will actively commute to work, for example, i.e., I will decide to do more movement at home. I'll use the broom and brush more often than the vacuum cleaner, right? I'll be more physically active whilst at home, doing the things that I can let other machines do for me. Making those type of decisions. Active commuting, having breaks at work where I go outside and go for a walk, or utilize that gym membership that I have. Those sort of things can make significant changes for us based on making changes in one's environment. Moving to cities where being physically active, i.e. more pedestrianized, increases our likelihood to be more active, right? So in the main, people in New York with good public transport system, people in Manhattan are more active than those where, you pretty much have to use a car to get from A to B in your city, right? So that isn't luck that happens. It's because it's a more convenient way to get around the city. So to use the metro, you have to take the stairs. You have to be kind of rushing from A to B. So London as well, we're a very pedestrianized city. So walking is not something that you're surprised by when you see it. I've been to cities in the US and I'm like, I've been here for hours. I haven't seen one pedestrian. I haven't seen anyone walking. Sometimes you don't even see sidewalks in neighborhoods. You just see the car parked in the front yard, and then straight into the road. That's it.
That's it.
So we are disadvantaged by, one, our biology, two, needing willpower to move more in the absence of having to do it. And so my solution is to utilize our desire for play and playfulness and to embrace our inner child. So when you think about your inner child and you think about the activities that you couldn't wait to do, right? The chasing games, the climbing trees, the playing hide and seek, playing kick the can, all these universal games where we've all got different names to them globally, but we played the same games as kids, right? It revolved around the same type of activities: running, chasing, being caught, climbing, jumping, piggyback carrying. They're all,
Yeah.
riding bikes, exploring, getting dirty, you know, um, falling in and out of love with your friends, right? Having conflict, risky play, doing things that adults will say don't do it, right? All these
Yeah.
things are universal. Unfortunately, even that sort of childhood is largely absent right about now. We
Yeah.
have less outdoor play, less free roaming, free ranging of kids because of our perceived, our concerns around, perception of danger. We don't want our kids to
Yeah.
play like I played as a kid. So our kids aren't having this adventurous childhood. Their child is becoming more sedentary as a result, and that just feeds forward into their adulthood. So it takes a lot for one to decide, I want to be more active. But
Yeah.
if you have a more playful spirit around being more physically active, then you're going to be driven to seek out these playful opportunities. And that's why I'm an advocate of using play as a way of seeking out joy through movement, of being in the moment, of
What
finding
was
pleasure
your
in movement.
what was your this morning? Have you moved already today?
I have moved already today. Yeah.
Tell me what your morning movement looks like in which you are integrating this sense of play somehow.
I'm at that age now where, when I first get up in the morning, I'm like, I'm a little bit stiff, right?
Yeah.
I'm like the kind of the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. And I don't know if you guys use WD-40 over in the US, but
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
you do. Yeah. So I feel like I need some WD-40 just to kind of loosen up and to lubricate my joints. So, which is in a way I'm thankful for, because every single morning I have to spend a few minutes of my day, limbering up, right? And I don't do this because it's quite, it's quite being part of the status quo to say, hey, I do my mobility session, my 10 minutes of mobility every morning. For me, it's a necessity. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling a bit achy. I'm feeling a bit, like an older man than I am. I need to move. So I go through this lubrication of my joints moment in the morning. And then I start to feel myself again. And from that moment on, I will, I have, a few levels in my apartment. So I notice I'm kind of springing up the stairs, and I'm not sort of like, I'm more gazelle-like after a few minutes. So I'm springing up the stairs. I've got a bit of kind of like this desire, this itch to move more. And usually when I get outside, like I did today, I had a meeting in the city center downtown. It's about 8 miles away. There's a e-bike, Lime bikes. I think that they're available in many parts of the world that you can hire from your phone. I'm like, instead of me taking public transport, it's 8 miles or so to central London. I'm getting myself a Lime bike. Hide the bike. I'm going as fast as I can. Get to my point, park up, had my morning meeting, and then I rode. Got something to eat. Then I rode back. So my day, my morning was an active morning. So chose an active commute.
Yeah.
I chose an active commute back when it'd be very easy to say, I've done my movement today, and let me just get the tube back. So I have a tube station, a metro
Yes.
station, 5 minutes away from my home. So it'd be very convenient to get onto the tube to get home.
Yeah.
But I made this
Yeah.
conscious decision I'll get back on the bike again. Weather's quite nice. So yeah, I can't say every single day is like that for me, apart from the WD-40 moment. but
Yes.
but I'm constantly looking for these opportunities of moving more, of taking the less convenient option.
Yeah.
And sometimes that would include something which is structured. So
Hmm.
structure will mean, okay, I'm going to do a block of movement which is more purposeful. So I'm going to do some animal moves. I'm going to, lift something heavy. I'm going to lift some weights. I'm going to go out to my local park and climb trees and balance on railings. I'm going to catch up with my friends because I want to play tag, and I want to play some games.
Hmm.
So I have, I suppose, three strands of streams of movement throughout my day. The one where I'm saying I could do this thing in a very physically inactive way, or
Hmm.
a more sedentary way, or I could decide I want to get more movement in. So in other words, I'm going to take the stairs rather than taking the elevator or escalator. I'm going to make that decision
Yeah.
throughout the day. The second will be I have to go from A to B, wherever that is. Do I reckon I could do that in an active form of commute? Yes, I can. Okay, that's my commuting handled. And then the third is around a more structured pursuit of saying, right, today I plan to do X or Y because that's something that I need as part of my movement week. So there's a day-to-day
Yeah.
demands and decisions, and there's the bigger pieces of movement where I go, you know what, I haven't got my hit in this week, or I haven't got my mobility in, or my, my lifts and carries in, or whatever it might be. I need to make sure that's done.
Yeah. I love the idea, the energy, as I recap a couple of these things for the audience, the energy of getting in a 16-mile bike ride to and from a meeting is so different than going to a gym in fluorescent fake lighting, sitting in a corner and just riding it, grinding it out, right? There
Yeah.
is purpose. There's a different energy. There's a different level of achievement I find that's unlocked when you're walking somewhere.
Yeah.
When you're using it as a transport. My neighbors over here were just talking about the other day. They're like, "Isn't it silly we go and lift, like we lift all these weights when we could be building something?"
Mm.
We're in the process of building a big sauna here. My neighbors have a big 8-person sauna, and it's all wood fired. So even though it'd be easier to create an electric sauna and push a button and turn it on, or turn it on from your phone,
Mm.
the process of gathering wood, gathering kindling, building a fire, and now we're just playing around with like really learning how to use an axe
Yeah. Wow.
again
Yeah.
and splitting firewood. And holy cow,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about a full body movement that like crushes you?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And it's fun because look, I made something. I
Yes.
didn't just move bricks back and forth, which feels, as far as like we only have so much life force. We only get to do so much.
Yes.
There's a limited amount of output. Like, do something with it. It's like
Yeah.
there's something about a gym for me, which I think if you contextualize it in play, I think that's one thing that CrossFit did really well. Is like people were cheering each other on,
Mm.
and there's community, and there's rope climbing, and even though I have questions about the long-term nature of that type of a workout in
Yes.
that high of a frequency, that play element is also something that can, I think it can kind of negate that idea of just picking away up and down, up and down, up and down. There
Yeah.
is that community or
The
joy sense of
yeah,
togetherness.
the group, I mean, CrossFit have done that aspect of getting people to move together so well. That group camaraderie, the cheerleading, the competition, right? Helping
Yes.
people to get the best out of themselves because you're seeing your
It's
peers.
inspiring.
It's very inspiring.
And to see the transformation on the
Yeah,
bodies.
yeah,
Like, I'm like, oh, look at these people are like crushing
yeah.
it.
And there's a lots of variety, which is also very playful. It's we're not
Yes.
going to do the same thing all the time. We're gonna mix things up, and I would say, you know even though it is known as the sport of fitness, CrossFit, and it is very
Mm-hmm.
geared around fitness rather than just movement. And so with CrossFit, I find it's very difficult to take CrossFit out of the box, right? You need the
Yes.
kit. I mean, of course, you can do handstands anywhere, say, right? Or you could do
Yes.
pull-ups at home, put up a bar at home, and or get a kettlebell and do kettlebell. So of course you can take some equipment out of the box, but in the main, you need certain type of equipment. You work on certain types of movement patterns, and it does feel better when you're doing it in that group, right? In that box, with your shirt off, being cheered,
Yeah.
right? Um, but for lots of people will be surprised to hear that you could still live a sedentary existence even though you're doing a CrossFit WOD every day. That's the
Yes.
downside. People feel, oh, I've done my workout. I absolutely smashed it. I worked out a max intensity. I've done my thing. Then they, get back in the car, either go home and work from home or go to the office, and then they're sedentary for the rest of the day. And they feel, because I've done my WOD, I'm good. And unfortunately, that sedentary individual, based on their total work output, is negating a lot of that really good work they did in their 6:30 morning class at CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's more important. Of course, if somebody's sedentary all day versus somebody does a CrossFit WOD then sedentary, CrossFit WOD plus sedentary is going to be better. But even better than that, somebody moving at even lower intensity throughout their day, right? Every 20 minutes, they're moving for a couple of minutes, can have
Yeah.
better health outcomes, not necessarily fitness outcomes, but better health outcomes than the person who does the 30 minutes workout sedentary for the rest of the day. And there's fortunately
Mm.
lots of research comparing those cohorts of those who
Yeah.
do movement in terms of movement breaks or movement snacks versus those who have their one big workout meal a day, right? And people aren't
Yeah.
aware of this benefit, that literally just breaking up sedentary time can be enough to disrupt your, your metabolic dysfunction that occurs, right? So if you sit
Yeah.
down and you're kind of running idle, then your blood sugars will start to rise, your triglycerides will start to rise, especially post meal. And if you don't move, you're creating this sense of disharmony and discord in the body. You start to move,
Yeah.
your blood sugars will lower. You start to move, you break down these harmful blood fats just through physical activity. And it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
intense, right? It just has to happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
my messaging, and that's why movement is more important to me than just exercise or just being
Yeah.
physically active, because I'm aware that you have to do more than just, okay, I'm standing now, so everything's great because I'm not sitting down. No, we need to be moving through our full range and of abilities and capabilities, right? We need to feel our heart pumping into our chest. We
Yes.
need to get out of breath. We need to feel our muscles burning when we're trying to lift something heavy. All of those aspects of movement are really important at the right type of frequency, obviously having adequate fueling, adequate recovery. But once you add this, as I say, this playful element, I'm going to tell you straight, I would rather put like 2-3 humans on my back and carry them than I would popping, weights onto a bar and doing some deadlifts. And
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't know how much people weigh, right? I would be like, okay, you weigh 70 kilos, you weigh 65. Let me work that out. Let me work on my 1 rep max, carry max. It's more the fact that, like, one, hey, I reckon I can do this. Two, it's really awkward and and not very, and challenging, not very easy to do, but it's also a
Yeah.
lot more inherently fun. It's reminiscent of
Yes.
our childhood, and that's why
Yeah.
if you give a child a choice, hey, carry a tree trunk or carry something really heavy or carry your sibling or try and carry your parents or one of your friends, what are they going to choose? Right? They're going to be like, come, they're going to
Come on,
choose.
let's do this together.
Yeah, they're gonna choose. Hey, get on my back. Let's do this, right? So there is something about being and working with other humans where you're physically interacting. So I would say with CrossFit, say you're working together in a group, but you're separate individuals within that group. You're very much an
Yeah.
individual working hard. Maybe you're getting cheered on, but when you take it to the next level of actually working together, of
Mm-hmm.
cooperating, of working as partners, as working as a team, then imagine what that work output would be, right?
Yeah.
You can achieve far more. And that
Yeah.
achievement is not just a physical one, it's also what you feel emotionally.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a great reminder. It's like life is better shared, movement is better shared.
Yeah.
Darryl, if we can, one topic that's so near and dear to my heart is cancer care and oncology, and to speak of this epidemic in which we have this lack of movement, and that for sure, in my experience, in my deep knowing, plays into our dramatically increasing rates of young human beings dealing with cancer,
Mm.
MS, chronic illness. I think we were emailing the other day. I had come back from a funeral from one of my friends who had passed away. I think you were
Mm.
experiencing a similar thing. How does movement and medicine, from your understanding, come into play in the world of oncology or cancer care?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, there is a field, a subset of oncology called exercise oncology. And this is a body of research looking at the beneficial role of exercise on patients, on those dealing with cancer. And one branch looks at prevention. So there's a significant body of evidence on exercise role in prevention. From breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer. There's percentages in terms of risk reduction, and there are reasons as to why that is. Okay, um, so we can link, say, reduction in risk in colon cancer, which is about 25% reduction in risk, pretty significant reduction in risk for people who meet the 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity activity versus those who do less. So,
Mm-hmm.
a very significant intervention, a remarkable reduction in risk. And we know the underlying mechanisms for that are: one, you have better motility through the gut. So in other words, pathogens or things that cause, more likely to be causing cancer, spend less time in the gut. And also there's
Mm-hmm.
improvements in bile acid metabolism, which is also two kind of causal factors of issues in terms of colon cancer. So, and for different types of cancer, we can, one, see the reduction in risk, and secondly, we can see what the underlying mechanisms are. So that's for prevention. In terms of
Yeah.
therapy, even more remarkably, we can do the same. So we now know somebody with a primary, breast cancer tumor, for example, that has a hormonal expressed breast cancer, like estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. We know
Yes.
those who exercise more vigorously, higher volumes, will reduce their risk of a secondary cancer, can reduce their risk of metastasis, can reduce their risk of dying from that primary tumor by being more physically active. And again, we can see the evidence in terms of what underlying mechanisms are responsible for that benefit. So it's a wonderful area of research, and it's now outside of the research sphere and used in a very practical setting. So there are
Mm-hmm.
oncology societies around the world. Australia is one, whereby patients who are undergoing, post-surgery chemotherapy, radiotherapy, are taken under pretty serious exercise regimen whilst undergoing treatment. And those treatments, as you know, difficult as they are, exercise actually helps alleviate some of the side effects of those symptoms. It reduces the risk again of secondary cancers, reduces the impact of nausea, say. It can help with fatigue. So it's actually now being used as an adjunct to some of those therapies, which is pretty incredible. And that's now becoming the advice is now becoming more popular around the world, where you have physical therapists, personal trainers, PTs who are trained in exercise oncology, who are part of the treatment pathway. And there's remarkable evidence on again the reduction in risk of secondary cancer, the reduction in mortality, and oncologists looking at the reasons as to why. One really fantastic study that I saw recently was a study on prostate cancer. And so for prostate cancer, one of the markers that are looked at is known as a PSA, prostate specific antigen. So it's a blood marker which is looked at to detect, one, if there's any abnormalities, but also if you do have prostate cancer, it basically can track the progress of disease or the effect or impact of treatment. So the higher that level is, PSA level, usually the more harmful it is, right? And there's a study done looking at 12-week intervention of those early stage prostate cancer, where this is before they need surgery or they need, radiotherapy or anything like that. But they wanted to see, could they keep PSA levels suppressed just for exercise alone? So one cohort, 12 weeks, pretty hardcore exercise regimen. The other cohort just went about and did their usual thing. The cohort doing exercise, structured exercise, their PSA levels came down significantly. So they had huge drops in PSA levels just with exercise as an intervention. So this is now has come to the stage where we're likely to see exercise prescriptions being given for management of cancer, as well as other chronic diseases. So this evidence exists for people dealing with multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's. One of the best interventions for Parkinson's is actually physical activity. Obviously helpful for people dealing with, say, osteoporosis, maintaining bone density, people dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia. So diabetes, you can significantly reduce the risk of going from pre-diabetes to full-blown type 2 by incorporating more movement in your life. And again, there's evidence to support the underlying mechanism. So yeah, we could go on and talk about lots of different physical conditions and ailments, but one headline that I think is one of the most important for anyone to remember is that there can be up to a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality risk comparing a physically active person, so somebody meeting the minimum guidelines, versus those who don't. And this 50% reduction in risk of all-cause mortality is what scientists basically state as any cause of death. So pretty important as a headline, and up to a 50% benefit is more significant than any other intervention you can think of. So when we think of movement, in terms of that benefit, if movement was a pill, if we could take that pill and all reduce our risk of chronic disease by 50%, wouldn't that be amazing? But even more amazing is the fact that we can take the pill as long as we do the movement, right?
Take the movement pill.
Take the
I
movement
love
pill.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, there was a study I was looking at in looking at metastatic cancer and high intensity aerobic exercise looked at a decrease in cancer metastases by 72%. And this was a Tel Aviv study. And it was looking at the ability of the organs when they're metabolically active to absorb more glucose, move lymphatics. And so the body, from a cellular standpoint, can better deal with that tumor. And I think it's a great reminder, all the things I'm hearing you say is, we have this body, this wonderful muscle mass that does fight cancer, that has an immune system when properly mobilized, is very effective and has a huge impact on outcome. And that information right now, I would say, if anybody's hearing this, I would say, number one, you got to go listen to Darryl's TED Talk, because it's very inspiring. Tell me the name of your TED Talk again.
Yeah, why working out isn't working out.
Why working out isn't working out. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yep, thank you.
And go find the fire inside yourself. And if you're finding yourself up against that wall when you know you should be doing this, I think this is a great reminder that it may be the context or the energy behind the action. It's not always fun to go to a gym by yourself.
Yep.
And until that is an ingrained habit and you keep falling off, I think we've got to try something different. And I really like this idea of joy and playfulness. It's not funny. It's always like universal. Did you notice my coffee cup?
Good old London double-decker bus.
So I got a London double-decker. Happened to pick this cup this morning as I'm, on my one trip to London a couple of years ago. But this morning, I was really like, I got to go to the gym. I have 2 podcasts back to back. I know this is important, and I just didn't feel it. I was on my own, didn't have a workout partner. So I put my slide board out and I did some skating.
Yep, nice.
I did a vibration plate on red light therapy with a little breath work and had some good tunes on. So I'm jamming and dancing. And then I got a brand new pull-up bar in the backyard, and I just did some like hangs and just being out in nature and kind of rotating.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've got a little game going for myself. I've got stations. And it just made all the difference in the world. My 15-minute movement turned into an hour because I was like, I was having fun.
You're having fun.
And I could feel I was like, man, my brain's turned on. I feel all the oxygen. And as a result, you can just feel it, especially when I'm in an interview. You can feel where I'm like fighting for a question and there's clarity and extra words. And usually when I do movement first, pretty seamless. And it's a great reminder that you can bring all these systems online that we inherently own.
Exactly.
And movement is such medicine.
Is medicine, yeah. And I think just really want to touch on a couple of points. So all of these benefits that I discussed around movement, exercise, and cancer. One of the benefits is this improvement in immunosenescence. So that's the ability of our immune system to continue to work as we age. So we know that as we age, it increases the risk of cancer, unfortunately. So immunosenescence improves. Immunosurveillance, so the ability of our immune system to find, target, and kill pre-cancerous cells, cancerous cells, is also improved. And the ability of the immune system to mobilize itself. So through circulation is also improved. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention. But secondly, double-decker bus. In 1953, there was a landmark study done by London Transport. And this study looked at sedentary bus drivers versus sedentary bus drivers versus more active bus conductors. And this study looked at all of the other factors in relation to their lifestyle behaviors. So they came from the same part of the city, similar numbers of smokers, non-smokers. They ate a very similar diet, etc., 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 etc. But however, the bus drivers were 95% of their day sedentary. The bus conductors, so these are the people who would, help you on and off the bus, help with luggage, going up and down the stairs to give tickets to passengers. They were, 90% of their day was active. And what they found was the bus drivers are 3 times more likely to, 1, have a heart attack, 2, to die from a heart attack than the conductors. And that study, because, people said, well, hold on a second, maybe it's because of the additional stress of being a bus driver, right? Maybe it's because the bus conductors are having lots of conversations with passengers. Maybe there's all these other factors. So this scientist started looking at other sedentary populations. So he looked at postal workers, office workers, and that research carried them from the 50s right up until the early 2000s. Remarkable. And
Wow.
it basically was the first evidence of sedentary behavior in itself increasing the risk of disease. So thank you for mentioning it sounds like we set this up, but thank you for mentioning the double-decker bus. Yeah, it was a Lancet
Yes.
study in 1953. Jeremy Morris. Hopefully I've got, yeah. I think it's Jeremy Morris, but it's definitely Morris. Lancet 1953, and it started because people were asking the question, why is cardiovascular disease on the increase? Why is there an epidemic of heart
Yeah.
attacks? And this was one of the studies that was undertaken.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I need to have you back, Darryl. There's so much we could do 5 or 6 podcast episodes, and there's so much to unpack
Yeah.
here, from the joy, from the technology, which is such a blessing, but it's almost orchestrating the dopamine pathways in our brain to program us to be still.
Yes.
And so we got to fight against that and engineer. So I think it's a reminder we'll need often. So I'd love to have you back on in the future.
Pleasure.
Where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, best place is my website, primalplay.com. I'm known as a Fitness Explorer online, at Fitness Explorer on Instagram. And if you search for Darryl Edwards on Google, fortunately, I'm the first name that appears, and you'll find a lot of my work, my TED Talk. I had a feature in the New York Times late last year that you'll also see as well. So there's some good bit of information out there on me and my work.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, it's been such a treat to converse with you this morning, all the way over on the other side of the pond. I applaud what you're doing, and I can't wait to connect more and learn more about Primal Play.
Cheers.
Movement is medicine. Let's shout it from the rooftop. Thank you for being a guest on the Beautifully Broken podcast.
Thanks so much, Freddie. It's been an absolutely fantastic day. So thank you so much.
Yes, big love.